two chapters today, and that is Draco's Detour and the Slug Club. And I had difficulty with these chapters because a big part of it is, at least with Draco's Detour, it's, you know, getting us where we need to go. And same being true of even the Slug Club. Like, we've got some interesting world building, like we really have an expansion of Fred and George's side of things, and the Slug Club is giving us an expansion of who knows who. But I think what I want to focus on in this video is sort of that knowing and guessing side of things. That is to say that at this point in time, our characters do not know everything that is going on. In a lot of ways also cannot know everything that's going on. And this can sort of, like looking at the Slug Club, we actually have one of the 7th years that Slughorn's already written off because he doesn't interact with his uncle who made the Wolfsbane potion a lot. But even when the boy tries to explain that it's his father and his uncle feuding, that's prevented that. So in a lot of ways he's not been able to know this uncle. Slughorn isn't accepting this because it's about what you know and who you know for Slughorn, and anything else is just a cheap excuse type thing. But that's sort of the interesting thing, is that while Slughorn is looking at who you know and what you know, in the case of somebody like Jenny, who knows how to cast a really good Bat Bogey hex, what he's not allowing for is the fact that, again, you're not going to be able to know everything. And that's sort of sprinkled through this entire set of chapters and even further. Because I think on this one, Harry is taking a lot of lessons from Dumbledore. And we might not be able to see it because Harry is making mistakes in these lessons that we wouldn't see Dumbledore making. But we're also seeing Harry at 16, who's just learning these lessons. Never mind Dumbledore, who we know is older than Slughorn, so we know, like, he's super old. So he sort of seems, like, mystical to us, and Harry's sort of bumbling along. He's making mistakes, he's gotten caught by Draco. But the thing is, what he is doing at this point in time is making some theories that then can get tested, and then he's aiming to test those theories. It's not like first year where he just assumed that Snape was guilty and is not seeking to verify or disprove this. He is now seeking to somehow verify this belief he has that Draco has been marked. And in fact, the proof that he does, like the movements that he has from Draco, are something that you can start building a theory around. So I'm not quite sure why, like, Ron and Hermione are willing to write off Harry here, when they're sort of making just as many harebrained theories about the prophecy and about why Dumbledore wanted to pick Harry up himself. Really, the more direct thing on that one simply would have been that Dumbledore is the person that Voldemort is afraid of, so Dumbledore picking up the person that Voldemort is trying to kill is actually a really logical way of doing things. So why is it that we are getting certain people allowed to make these theories and then other people who aren't? And I think a big part of that is simply because Harry has his prejudices that his theories are conforming to them. Harry gets heated in the robe shop because Sirius is brought up, and he brings up Lucius, and there's this push and pull of what everybody knows and how that's going to get used. That is to say that for us, our, sympathy with Narcissa rapidly dissipates when she's just all, yeah, so it is mudblood, and you're just like, I felt for you, woman, I felt for you, and now you're just coming in here, throwing slurs around, being all sniffy. And that happens again also with the Slytherin, like all the Slytherins in the train car, who are literally like the stereotypes that we're following for Slytherins. And just, those are the assumptions we're making. Yet they're being confirmed. So that's sort of the thing, is you are always going to make assumptions, and you are always going to make theories. And when you are then trying to prove or disprove a theory, you want to take in everything. You can't just take in the information that is going to prove you right. But in these moments, we are actually seeing, like, we can't just tell Harry that he's being stupid. Not all Slytherins are like that. That's probably true, but the Slytherins we're seeing are assholes, even to each other. Like, straight up, if one of Harry's friends tripped and fell on top of him, he probably would have been like, are you cool? No, we've got, like, Zambi and, I can't remember if it's Crabbe or Goyle, but they're literally sniping at each other because Zambi has fallen into Crabbe or Goyle. Draco finds this frickin' hilarious. And he's bragging about how he's on to bigger and better things, and these kids are trying to one-up each other, and I'm just sitting there like, oh my god. Because Harry, like, defends his friends when somebody comes in and makes assumptions about them. And then we're literally watching, like, these Slytherin students just trying to one-up each other, and I'm like, I don't know what to do. Harry is getting this information, and maybe he's getting more information than everybody else. But he's starting to make logical guesses through the information that he's perceived. For example, he knows that Snape also has the Dark Mark. He knows that Snape is very sensitive about his left arm. He knows that Lucius was a Death Eater. He knows that Lucius has been caught. Like, to him it makes sense, but that's because he's always had the more information than anybody else. And while he can try and tell that to them, it's a little difficult because not oftentimes people are going to believe you. And that's the thing, is we can see a very clear comparison between Harry and Dumbledore here, simply because that's the thing, like, Dumbledore probably couldn't outright, as he tried to do with Voldemort's back, he probably couldn't outright, like when Voldemort was defeated, say, I am of the belief that Voldemort is not actually fully gone. I believe he somehow, handled everything, and because there's this prophecy. A lot of people are probably going to be like, Dumbledore, shut up. You're seeing things that aren't there. You're taking this too seriously. He's just a human. So, like, we can sort of see now in Harry's temptation to keep things to himself because so few people believe him about this. that you start getting an idea of why Dumbledore also chose to keep some of this information and continues to keep some of this information to himself. And in fact, we're really gonna see Harry sort of have to take over this mantle when Dumbledore unfortunately passes away at the end of this book. It really is suddenly going to have to be Harry figuring these theories out from basically nothing and trying to put everything together and fix things, and it's not that easy. And maybe Harry's not always forward-thinking as much as he should be, but I think we can point out that some of his enemies aren't either. Like Draco, who literally loses the opportunity to steal Harry's invisibility cloak so that Harry doesn't have it, and Draco himself does. Like, when he puts that invisibility cloak back on Harry, sure, okay, they won't find Harry until he reaches London again, but they're gonna find Harry. Harry's not dead, and Harry's gonna be back at, like, Hogwarts with now a frickin' grudge, and still has an invisibility cloak. Seriously, just take the cloak. Take the cloak. A lot of these kids aren't thinking forward a lot. Harry is trying to, by coming up with these theories and trying to work through them. He's making mistakes, but I don't think him making mistakes means that we should just be like, well, Harry's terrible at this. Everyone's making mistakes. That's gonna happen. It becomes a question then of when can you not afford to make mistakes? And I think out of all of these students at the moment, the student that can't afford to make mistakes is the one we are actually cheering against, and that is Draco Malfoy. Because his life is in immediate danger from both sides. And that's terrifying. Yeah, no, Malfoy continues to be an asshole, but reading through this series, in a lot of ways, I actually sympathize more with him than with someone like Severus Snape. That's a frightening consideration, because I did not like Malfoy really any time in this series before this point. Now I'm just sitting here going, this kid must be terrified and he's just trying to act like he's not. Makes my left arm itchy. I'm gonna keep reading, and I hope you do too. See you next time.